There had been a lot of controversy online between people who loved her and people who loved me. I said, I have nothing to do with whatever was happening back then. There was no reason for me to have any kind of feelings about her other than, oh, very nice to meet you, finally.
Daphne Maxwell Reid, this is a real treat to see you.
Thank you, Craig, for inviting me to join you.
So many wonderful moments in your life, Daphne. I mean, you're at junior high school in New York and you got to perform at Carnegie Hall. And I think what you're around about 12 or 13, somewhere around there.
I was in the New York City junior high and high school chorus, and we got to sing all over the place. And the Carnegie Hall one was very special, very special.
I
I knew that Carnegie Hall was a great place to perform because I grew up in New York and I knew all about Carnegie Hall. So I was quite proud to sing there. I was an alto
Yes.
and sang in the group. I was not one of the lead singers. I'm not that good, but I had a great time.
But you were there and you recognized how hallowed those wonderful halls were. Look, here is another. You were the first black model to cover Glamour Magazine, and that was 1969, where you'd be around
Yes,
21.
yes. I had been modeling for about 2 years, and I was in school in Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. I was signed with an agency called Eileen Ford, and she was one of the top agents at the time in New York. And I would fly back and forth to New York and go back to school.
Hmm.
My kind of mentor, her name was Mrs. Green, called me and said, come to New York, come here. And she told me where to go. And I arrived and she said, okay, just pull your hair to the side, put this red jacket on, some lip gloss and some eyeshadow or no mascara, and sit on the window right here. This man came in with a camera. I don't know that he took a whole roll of film. And she said, okay, thank you. And you can go back to school now. And a couple of months later, I was walking down the street and I saw my face on the cover of the Glamour magazine in a newsstand. I had
Wow.
no idea. It was
Incredible.
a surprise to me, and it was just, it was wonderful.
Oh, Daphne, look at that beautiful shot there of you in the yellow dress. Was that your first modeling job?
That was 17 magazine. That
Gorgeous.
is the first modeling job that I ever did. And there's a whole story around that outfit because 20 years after that picture, I was designing for McCall's Patterns, who made that outfit. So
Oh, wow.
it's a
That's
small world. Yeah, that was a fun project that I did.
Let's go back to the beginning. So you were born in New York. Daphne, did your parents have anything at all to do with showbiz?
No, they probably didn't go to the movies very much either. We did as kids, but they were busy. They didn't. So they had no touch with showbiz. And the only kind of input I was able to have in high school was to be a member of a thing called the Group Theater Workshop that Robert Hooks was holding on Saturdays. So it
Mhm.
was like a hobby. And I got to perform at the Cherry Lane Theater and did my first monologue on a theater stage. And my father was able to come to that performance and saw, oh, that's what you've been doing.
Mhm.
But nobody's pushing me toward doing that because at the time, being a Black woman and trying to be in the entertainment industry was kind of far fetched, as they say. There wasn't a lot of that going on. So it was not something that I was aiming for. I was going to either be a teacher or whatever.
Yeah, because you studied, I think, interior design and architecture at university. And then you started out professionally doing TV commercials. Do you remember what your very first TV commercial was?
I certainly do. It was a fun one for Kleenex towels, I believe, paper towels. And what it they asked me to do was pretend I was feeding a baby.
Mhm.
Just scoop up and just feed the baby, which was the camera. And I did a couple of takes of feeding the baby. They said, okay, now we're going to shoot it. And they started shooting action. I go to feed the baby, and somebody behind the camera had a spoonful of wet goop. It was probably oatmeal. And he flung it at my face. It only took 2 takes to make this commercial. It was just a great start to the commercial field.
No wonder you remember that one so vividly. And this is a fascinating diversion because 1973, you become a disc jockey in Chicago on radio WLS, I think.
It was a Saturday evening shift from 2 in the morning till 5 in the morning. So it was what they were doing. I found out later was they wanted to know if a Black female could entice a rock audience to listen
Mhm.
to the radio. They had somebody else in mind, and I was their test case, kind of warm up girl. And I did that for a couple of months, and it was a lot of fun, but not something I'd try to make a career out of.
And then along
Yes.
comes your first TV drama, which was a series called The Duke with Robert Conrad, and Larry Manetti was in there as well. What are your memories, Daphne, of working with the great Robert Conrad?
He was a dream. I think he went to Northwestern as well, because he used to call me Queenie because I was Northwestern's first Black homecoming queen.
Yes.
And I went to the audition, did my best, went back, and my agent said, well, no, you didn't get cast in it. Oh, so sorry. So a day later, she called me back and she said, you were handwritten into the script. You will have a recurring role now. And I said, that's lovely. That's the way my life has been, just full of just serendipitous wonder.
Yes.
But he and I hit it off well. I had a great time shooting that show. And then when I moved to Los Angeles, he was shooting another show called A Man Called Sloan.
Hmm.
And I called him when I got to LA, of course, and said, hi, how you doing? And he said, oh, I'm glad you're here because I have a role for you in the next episode. And I was in that show.
Yeah.
And then I did another movie with him, a little TV movie. And he was just a wonderful, wonderful mentor for me.
I remember in the 80s, there was a very catchy song called It's a Love Thing. By the Whispers, as I recall it. And when you look at that video clip right at the very beginning, is a Hollywood reporter asking questions. Well, that Hollywood reporter, that was little you.
I did a couple of Whispers music videos. They weren't known that at that time. They were just starting with music videos. I did another one for another song that I cannot remember the name of, but we were in an antique shop and I was like a ghost woman from their past or something that kept coming in and out of their life. It was fun to shoot.
And of course, then being in Hollywood, you do the rounds of all the shows, things like Cagney and Lacey, and you land on a show called WKRP in Cincinnati. And if I'm right, that is where you met your husband, Tim Reid, who played the DJ at Venus Flytrap.
He was
Ah,
also a Chicagoan.
yeah.
We found out after we got to talking with each other that we had worked together several times doing photo sessions for different clothing companies and Sears and all that kind of catalog stuff. Um, I hadn't remembered him except for, oh, yeah, I've seen your face, in passing, not somebody that I had spent any time with. But another Chicago friend of mine who was out there, Steve Williams, who went on to do what I can't remember the name of his show, but he was on a series as well. And he says, do you remember Tim Reid? And I'm going, no. I said, tell him I said hi. If he's from Chicago, we all hung out together in LA.
Yeah.
And we had what was supposed to be a little 5-minute date. We had drinks, and then we had dinner, then we had breakfast, and 5 hours later, we're still talking. And now, 44 years later, we are still together.
How fantastic is that? In the 80s, you appeared in a TV show together, another one that was the drama series Simon and Simon, which was a wonderful show. You must have great memories of working on that series.
It was fun. A
Mm.
lot of the writers who had been on WKRP uh, were writing on Simon and Simon, and when a part came up for a girlfriend, they said, "Oh, get Daphne." So knowing those people helped me get that job, I'm sure. And I had a wonderful time going in and out of that series.
And Frank's Place was another where you two worked together also.
Yes, after Simon and Simon, Tim decided he wanted to produce a show about New Orleans. And the creator of WKRP got together and wrote the pilot and sold it to CBS. And we started shooting Frank's Place, which was my favorite show of all time. And I still cry when I watch it.
Well, because it just had that wonderful New Orleans vibe to it, didn't it?
And they had lots of people who were stars in Hollywood before anybody heard of them. Miss Marie Williams was just an incredible actress back in the 40s and the 50s. And it was just a conglomeration of fabulous talent and such a wonderful way to shoot, because we were shooting a half-hour comedy as you would a film show. So it wasn't with a laugh track. It wasn't just performing before an audience. It was shot like a film. And that was the first one that ever did that. And we got a lot of flack from folks. "Well, how come you're doing a half-hour sitcom with no laugh track?" And we said, because it works.
Hmm.
And it did.
Now, you became loved the world over, of course, as Aunt Vivian Banks on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. What is interesting, Daphne, is you were originally offered that Aunt Viv role and you turned it down.
Well, after Frank's Place, Tim and I did a show called Snoops. And after Snoops, I was offered an audition for a half-hour sitcom. Now, I had done Frank's Place, which was rich and juicy, and Snoops, who was just a fun hour of Nick and Nora Charles, say. That
Yes.
if you have that kind of memory, if you're old
Yeah,
enough to
like The
know
Thin
about that,
Man.
the
That's right.
Thin
The
Man
Thin Man.
series.
Yes.
So it was kind of based on that kind of idea. So when they called me for the audition, they said, "This is a half-hour comedy with a young rapper." I said, no, no,
Mm.
not going. And we were moving to Virginia at the time. So I said, "See ya. No, thank you." And didn't go to the audition. But
And
three
as we
years
know,
later, they called me and they said, "We'd like you to come out and audition for the role of Aunt Vivian, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air." Now, I had seen the Fresh Prince after it first started. And I said, "Ooh, I missed that audition." That's a cute show.
that's right.
And when they called me 3 years later, I said, "I'll be there." And I had to work for it. They had about 200 women that they were auditioning for that role. And 5 auditions later, I got the role.
Just to get the chronology right, Janet Hubert signed on for the role of Aunt Viv, and she did it for 3 years. It was quite sad because immediately I remember the tabloids went into a spin claiming she'd been fired, you'd been recast in that role. And Will Smith had been quoted then as saying that, she brought all these personal problems to work. But here's the thing, years later, Will apologized to Janet. He just didn't understand what she'd been going through personally. And you have to say to yourself, that is one really classy man.
He is. He's a true loyalty, classy guy. He's a dear, dear friend, and I'm happy to call him that.
You wind up stepping into those Aunt Viv shoes. Was that a difficult thing, or did you just grab it with both hands and make that role your own from that point forward?
I had to make it my own because I don't have the talents that Janet has. She's an incredible dancer and a wonderful actress. I had never met her, did not know the situation when I was cast. And when I arrived at Fresh Prince, I was greeted with 24 red roses and lots of hugs from people because they had known me from my other television shows. So it wasn't like a newbie coming to take the place of somebody who was dear to that role. I could not bring what Janet brought to that role. I could only bring what I could bring to that role. So I played it my way. I
Mhm.
was, I mean, after the first audition, I was in love with James Avery. He was just the most wonderful, warm, open, caring, great actor, and just a dear friend of mine, and miss him terribly.
But you had a great chemistry together, and that kind of stuff, you know, you could bottle it, couldn't you? It's very rare to get that
To
incredible
feel
chemistry and dynamic on screen.
it is, and to have that kind of chemistry with the entire cast was even more rare. I
Well, of
mean,
course,
Karen and Tatiana and Alfonso, we're all very close.
of course.
We go to weddings, we go to babies being born. We are truly a family, and I really appreciate all that I was able to do on the Fresh Prince and the cachet that it gave me. I
Oh,
really appreciate that.
tell me about Will Smith, because again, you two had a great dynamic going on there. He just had such a charisma, such a charm, such an extraordinary energy. You must be really proud to see the way he blossomed and now has just
Exactly.
become this kind of like one man dynamo.
You could see that when you were working with him because he was so over prepared with everything and such a great mind. We used to sit around on the couch with James and the kids, and we would talk philosophy and history and books and music. And he was always just right there, wanting to absorb all of that James had to teach him, the wisdom that I had to teach him, things that helped him grow up into the person that he is. But he has a work ethic like no other that I've ever seen. He would come to rehearsal and give 150%. And we would be going, I don't know the words yet, but let's walk this scene.
Yeah.
He was on it. And he was busy in the meantime doing business deals that put him in the position that he is in now. And I'm like a great parent of his that just feels very proud to see the progress that he's made and to see the fulfillment of the dreams that he had.
Oh, of course. And then, of course, you got to work together again because there's Bel Air now, which is kind of a reboot of the show. And you've been blessed to appear on that in several episodes.
Yes, that was a lovely thing. At the reunion, he told us, okay, he introduced us to the young man who created Bel Air. And we got to meet him and hear about the new series that they were going to be doing. And I said, oh, that's great. And Will said, you guys will all be part of this. This will all have something to do with all of you anyway. And when it aired, um, Will had managed to put a card at the end of every episode that said a thank you and honor to all of the cast members, and they named us by name, um, who did the original Fresh Prince.
And back to the original, just for a moment, let's not forget there was the Carlton, of course, Alfonso Ribeiro's Carlton Banks, and that incredible dance.
He came from Broadway. He was doing a show on Broadway where he was a young man who danced and was the star of the show, I believe. And he brought that energy and that drive that he had on Broadway with him. And he was so young. It was impressive to see somebody so committed to their craft. And he was a stitch. And he and Will were at it all the time. He was the best foil for Will. It was a blast to be working with all of them. And he really did energize everybody, especially on shoot night.
And then you touched on Tatiana Ali, another great talent who's gone on to have this exceptional career.
She still is working. I just adore her. I got to be with her last week. We played on a game show together,
Oh.
and it was wonderful getting my hugs from Tatiana. So we're always intersecting at different things, Comic Cons, and I keep up with, oh, that's your son. Oh, another son. And I see her at weddings. Um, I have the privilege of being a very close friend of James Avery's widow.
Hmm.
And because James and Barbara and Tim and I used to travel together during the Fresh Prince days, we would go to Europe. We went to the butler's wedding when he got married, Joseph Marcel's wedding. And just a wonderful, wonderful couple to travel with. Just had so much fun. So now that she is a widow, I'm still very good friends with hers. We just came from a cruise together about a month ago. So I adore her. It's just been a wonderful career in connecting with people that are truly grounded and talented. And I've just been very, very blessed.
Yes, I can see when James' name comes up, you've got such a respect and an admiration for somebody who was such a great performer. Did you know he'd been unwell? Did it come as a shock?
It was like a something had kicked me in the stomach.
Hmm.
He had diabetes, I believe, and had always been working on getting that together. And I think he went into the hospital for something routine and did not get off the table. And it was just a total shock to all of us because he had been improving, but it took him anyway.
There was this just such a wonderful avuncularness about him, you know. Do you sometimes feel him around you? Because I'm one of those people
Oh,
that thinks that kind of incredible energy just it doesn't evaporate.
I was just talking about him yesterday with Barbara.
Mm.
We have lots of fond memories, and we were talking about the dogs that they had had. I said, "Oh yeah, I remember that big black dog that James had," and we were just talking. He's always in our lives because he meant that much to us.
2020, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, the cast are reunited for what turned out to be a rip-roaring television special. And so for you, what was it actually like meeting Janet Hubert, the original Aunt Viv? Did you two bond right away? Was it kind of like, oh my gosh, you know, we're walking in one another's shoes in a weird way?
Well, there had been a lot of controversy online between people who loved her and people who loved me, and I had never met her. Um, when we were doing the reunion, they said, "Is it all right that Janet is coming?" I said, "Fine with me. I have no beef with Janet. I don't know her." So we were taking cast family pictures on the couch of the set.
Hmm.
And Will said, "Sit here, Daphne." And I sat next to him and we took these pictures. And then she was brought to the set. And I got up and gave her a hug and told her, "Welcome home. Please sit next to Will." And it was fine. They said, "Oh, you're not." I said, "I have nothing to do with whatever was happening back then. I just got to meet her, and she's a very talented woman. I respect that." There was no reason for me to have any kind of feelings about her other than, "Oh, very nice to meet you. Finally."
I remember seeing you, gosh, it was only a week or two ago. It was in a movie, a wonderful movie called A Jasmine's Blues, which was made, I think, back
Yeah.
in 2022. Tyler Perry directed that. What was that movie like to work on? It was, I must say, is one of those movies that really stays in your heart.
Tyler called me to do just an opening scene as the old woman,
Yes.
because the woman who had shot it looked too young.
Oh, right.
So they had to replace that scene, and they just dressed me like her. And, I guess he thought I was close enough to her to pull off being her aged self. And I was there for a week, but I only worked maybe 15 minutes. And it was lovely working with him. He is the fastest shooter I have ever seen. He will go through a scene. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
And it was done.
Yes. You mentioned your husband, Tim Reid, 44 years of marriage. Now, you two left Los Angeles years ago and moved to Virginia and actually run a studio there. Tell me about how that came about.
We moved to Virginia because Hollywood was making my husband's blood pressure rise too much. He was fighting too much for the power that he deserved, and getting so much pushback that it was just making him not happy. We moved back to Virginia, bought a farm in Charlottesville, and kind of let Los Angeles relax for a while. And we started other projects, and he started writing more and producing more and directing more. And then he did Sister Sister, and we were living at the farm. I did Fresh Prince, we were living at the farm. And I did another project for the McCall Pattern Company where I taught people how to sew, and we got a craft award. And it was a whole lifestyle thing. He got tired of going back and forth to LA to do work. So he said, I have this kind of power now to produce. This state doesn't have a studio. Let's build one. So we got a couple of friends together and decided to build this studio. And Petersburg, Virginia gave us land. And now Senator Mark Warner was one of our original partners. And a builder was another original partner. And we threw our money in it and built a studio, 52-acre studio with a back lot and a big stage. And we had the White House set for a long time and the Oval Office set. We had one of the only Oval Office sets in America back then. And we were hosting people. Steven Spielberg came and shot a little bit of stuff there. And we had a lot of people who really wanted it to succeed, but we could not get the state to understand the process of tax credits, which is where all of the states were making sure that they get people to go shoot in their state.
Mhm.
So because we couldn't get them to do tax credits, a lot of our clients went to other states. And eventually, after Tim did a whole series of independent documentaries, which he put on regular television before all of this internet stuff took all of this space away, he started a TV network with a young man, and the TV network's called TV One.
Mhm.
And he was part of the beginning of that and did original programming for them at the studio. But it was too hard. It was taking a toll on not being able to get the businesses to understand what we were doing and that we wanted to maintain our own copyrights and not just work for other people. We wanted to own stuff. So eventually we decided this is enough. We sold it.
Well, speaking of creators, you've got a website. So those who are really intrigued about what you're up to now and if they want to become part of your life, they can find you on your Daphne Maxwell Reid website, where I got to say, it's a Pandora's box. It's a treasure trove of really interesting things that you do. I mean, for instance, you make on-demand tote bags, and I think you just happen to have one right there. You
But this
do?
is the last of what I started. I started being a photographer and shooting doors
Wow.
from around the world. So after doing books and note cards and big wall pictures, I decided to join the two talents that I had for photography and for sewing and put them together. So I designed the fabric and had it printed, and I hand make a beautiful tote bag.
And there's people who are watching all over the world right now. Do you send internationally, or at this point in time, is it only through the US?
I can send it anywhere it needs to go.
You're a beautiful photographer, and you wouldn't think, would you, the doors would make the foundation for such stunning books and cards and things, but indeed, look at that. I love the cover, Daphne, that beautiful door. Where was that in the world?
This was in Veneto, right outside of Venice, and it was at the Villa Barbaro, which is a winery. And this was just a little outbuilding that they were storing something in. And I walked by and saw the bougainvillea. The cover opens up a little bit. So I saw the bougainvillea sitting. And I said, I have to take this picture. And I love that picture. This red door is the one that has become almost my trademark, because
Yes.
I do a whole line of just that card and it flies out of here. I only do doors that are international doors. I don't do domestic doors in the United States. Other people do that. Every
Yes.
city has the doors of. I'm not interested in those doors. I want to see craftsmanship. I want to see something that makes my heart sing. And Europe is full of them. Africa is full of them. India. I've been to China. I've been all over the world and have had a blast taking pictures of doors and just seeking out the culture and to see how the culture interacts with its passages. And I think doors are a metaphor for life. They just signify, oh, adventure and curiosity and going from one place to another and changes in one's life and embracing the thought that you can change your life just by going through a door.
Mhm.
Um,
Very
I
true.
try to encourage people to just take chances and go for it.
So,
Wow.
what's ahead for you? You're still working as a performer, as an actor, or have you kind of popped that on the back burner a bit and focusing on your photography and bags and books and so forth? Where are you sitting right now, and where can fans expect to find you on screen in future?
Oh, I may pop up anywhere, but
Hmm.
as an actor, you have to wait to be chosen. So they have a lot of people to choose before they get to me. So I keep myself busy by making coats like this one, custom
Wow.
coats for people who order them. And I'm still doing photography. I just had a trip to up the west coast of Africa, and I'm working on those pictures now and deciding whether it's going to be a book or a catalog or wall pieces or what it's going to become. But I have some wonderful pictures from there. And what I like is that I get up and not know what the day is going to hold. And I get to create according to how I feel. And if I feel like sewing and making a coat, then I do that. If I feel like working with my photos, I do that.
Daphne, it's been a
Excellent.
real joy talking to you.
Thank you, Craig. This has been a lovely day taking me through memory lane here.
Yeah, well, it is. It's like we took one another's hand and just had this lovely waft down what I've got to say is so far a very rich, and absolutely
Rich.
fabulous life. So thank you,
Oh,
Daphne, and enjoy
thank you.
2025 and what holds beyond.
Oh, thank you so much. And bless you too. Have a great year.
If you like that interview, and we've got loads more coming, you know what you can do to stay constantly up to date. You hit that subscribe button, hit the like button too, because it's lovely to be liked or loved. And I look forward to seeing you for another celebrity drop any tick of the old clock. Un momento. I'll catch you then. And with bells on. Bye.